Good morning, everybody. This is Dr. Sonia McGowan with Covenant Pediatric Wellness Center, and I'm so happy you're here. Today, we're going to talk about how deficiencies in a child's biochemistry, nutrient deficiencies, can impact their behavior and development. So let's get started. So as people join the room, I just want you to know if you're live with us, you are welcome to drop your questions in the Q&A box. There should be a sidebar that you can just drop those questions and I'll answer them as I'm able to do that. And I'll give some time for questions at the end as well. All right. So most of you already know me, but if you don't, I am Dr. Sonia. I'm a pediatric chiropractor and I'm a MAPS physician. That stands for Medical Academy of Pediatric Special Needs. And it's extensive education around the health concerns of kids who are complex. So kids with autism, ADD, ADHD, PANS, PANDAS, et cetera. And really that's our jam here is, the kids who have the biggest challenges. And so I live here in Jefferson City, Missouri, where my practice is, with my husband, Shannon, who's a CPA. And we have raised our kids. We're all done, sort of. But we do have an empty nest now. So we have Libby, who's 21 now. She lives in Kansas City. We have Rowan, who is 20, and he's in college in Illinois. And, instead of just enjoying an empty nest, we got a puppy last year. So he's about a year and a half now, but that's Ozzy. He's a sheepadoodle, and he's our new baby. So I want you to look at the picture of Rowan with his hands over his ears. I always include that because while everything is fine with him now, we went through a lot of struggles with him. And really, the way that I designed Covenant is all about what we went through with him. When he was a little guy, he was covered in eczema. He had terrible diarrhea. He never slept. He was nonverbal until he was about 4. And I literally, took him everywhere. And we were given a long list of nonsense reasons about why he was the way he was, including he had an older sister, including I was a helicopter mom. So, having an older sister is going to give you 20 diarrhea diapers a day, right? So anyway, I really consider him my first recovery story because when I quickly realized that wherever I took him, I was going to get no help, I just had to figure it out on my own. And so I really relied on the work of Dr. Sidney Baker. He was kind of the driving force behind the original DAN movement, which became MAPS. And so, I did what he said needed to be done. And Rowan is great today. He has no delays. He's in college with no supports, fully verbal. He's an absolutely neurotypical kid. So, but I remember what we went through with him, and I don't want other families to go through the same. So that's why Covenant is here. And so speaking of Covenant, we do a lot of things. So, my primary interest is complex kids. So we do very in-depth evaluations with kids. We do functional nutrition testing. We do chiropractic. We also do a lot of work around oral restrictions, so tongue, lip, and cheek ties. We do chiropractic for all ages, including pediatric and prenatal. We also do adult chiropractic now as well. We have 2 doctors who will see adults. So altogether, we have 4 chiropractors. We also have a pediatrician on staff. So Covenant Pediatrics is comprehensive, personalized pediatric medical care. So with Dr. Hannah Strong, who is a DO pediatrician. All right. So really, our motto is the why matters. We have to figure out what is behind a child's behavior, what's behind their delays. And until you know the why, right, you're not going to get as far as you could. We believe that there are no bad kids and there are no purposeless behavior. There's always a reason. And we really rely on our evaluation process and our testing to help us sort that out. So we're just going to have a quick biochemistry lesson, okay? So when we eat our food, it breaks down into fats, carbs, and proteins. And we have to just keep that biochemistry happening until we get to the Krebs cycle. So it's also called the citric acid cycle. It's called multiple things, but it happens inside the mitochondria. And this is how we make energy. So the energy currency of the body is called ATP. Think of it like gas in the car. If you can't make enough gas in your car, you're not going to go, right? And this is a major problem for nearly all complex kids who we see. They don't digest very well. They particularly don't manage fats very well. Many of them start out as just not being great eaters, right? They're very selective. There are lots of kids who come to us and parents are so ashamed. They'll say, oh, my kid only eats 3 foods, or my kid only eats carbs, or, he doesn't eat enough every day. And I immediately say, that's okay. It's common. We see that in the vast majority of kids. So they're not great eaters. They're not great digesters, particularly when it comes to fat. They don't manage fat very well. And fats, dietary fats, give us more energy per calorie than any other nutrient. And so when you can't do with fats what you need to do, you're already sort of at a disadvantage. So think about mitochondrial dysfunction as we sort of make it through these slides. And I also want to direct you to, I have a website called thewhymatters.net, and I have past webinars. I have blog posts as well that can tell you more about this whole, biochemistry issue particular to mitochondrial dysfunction. Okay, so it's very, very common for complex kids to have pretty significant deficiencies. And so we look at fatty acids, we look at B vitamins and minerals, and I'm going to explain to you what all of those do. But when we start kind of from the beginning with the fats, carbs, and proteins, let's talk about each one of those. So fats, again, are an important source of energy. They give structure to our cells. They help us with hormone production, and they help us absorb fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin A, D, E, and K. With carbohydrates, they're an important source of fast energy, right? So that's why it's 2 o'clock and you have a soda or you have a handful of M&Ms and it perks you up, right? Because carbs are fast energy. Carbs provide fiber, which make the belly happy. So carbs aren't all bad, right? And they help us with glycogen storage, which is a way to store energy. And then we have proteins. Proteins help us with muscle structure and function. They help us make enzymes. They're very important for immune function. And I'll tell you, the majority of kids who come to us are very focused on carbs. That's what they want. They want, sweets. They want sugar. They want crunchy things. Not usually the good carbs like fruits and vegetables, right? And so these are kids who are very driven to have carbs because it's fast energy to their brain. But the problem is fats and proteins are what really stabilize blood glucose. And so we have a lot of kids who have very dysregulated blood sugar, right? So they're up and down, which then affects their moods and their behavior. So let's jump in and talk about the vitamins. Okay, so we're going to start with vitamin A. So it is, like you probably know, carrots, high in vitamin A, very good for your vision, but also your skin, your immune system function. And then here's a list of each of these vitamins and what their food sources are. So again, for a lot of kids, we have some food allergies and sensitivities, and dairy can be one of those. And dairy is high in vitamin A. Sometimes kids have allergies or sensitivities to eggs too. So that can be a challenge. With vitamin C is really sort of good for everything. It's an important antioxidant. It's very important for the immune system. It's also important for wound healing and collagen synthesis. So it's really important for your skin and your hair. And so there are lots of food sources there. But again, these might be foods that kids aren't crazy about, right? Vitamin E is also another antioxidant, very important for immune function and skin health. Nuts and seeds, certain oils, avocados, leafy greens are all really good for vitamin E. And then we have vitamin D. And I'll tell you, it is rare for me to find a complex kid who has an appropriate level of vitamin D. So almost across the board, I would say 95% of kids are low in vitamin D, and generally not just a little low, I mean drastically low. The reference range for that lab is 30 to 100. Functionally, we really want vitamin D to be about 75. And it's very common for me to see kids come in and their vitamin D level is 9 or 5, right? So vitamin D is important for a lot of things, but it really helps with your calcium absorption, your bone health, very important for your immune system function. It's highly anti-inflammatory, and that's important because most complex kids have a really high level of inflammation. It also helps with mood and mental health. And then, of course, egg yolks, cod liver oil, fatty fish. Again, these are things that a lot of our kids aren't going to want to eat. We do get vitamin D synthesis from sunlight, but our kids just aren't great at that process. We also have something called glutathione. So this is your master antioxidant. And again, many complex kids, probably most, are pretty low in glutathione. But it's important for your liver health. It's important for the way you make your DNA. It's important for the Krebs cycle, for detoxification. And so again, garlic, onions, avocado, spinach, not always real easy foods for kids to eat. We also have another antioxidant called CoQ10. This is very important for energy production. So it's part of that Krebs cycle. And so eggs, dairy, fish, things like that have lots of CoQ10. And then we have our B vitamins. So you've got to think about your B vitamins as really the movers of energy production. So we have vitamin B1, also known as thiamine. So this helps us convert carbs to energy. It helps us with digestion. We have vitamin B2, again, converts food to energy. It also has a role with antioxidant function, detoxification. And vitamin B2 really helps activate what the other B vitamins can do. It's very important for the mitochondrial function, okay? So that energy production. Vitamin B3 helps with cholesterol levels, and we're going to talk about cholesterol eventually. Helps with DNA repair, helps with energy production as well. So vitamin B2 is also known as riboflavin. Vitamin B3 is also known as niacin. Then we have B5, known as pantothenic acid, again, important with energy making, with cholesterol and hormones. We have B6, also known as peroxidine. It helps make amino acids. It helps with neurotransmitters. So think serotonin, dopamine, and immune system function. And then we have B7, which is known as biotin. Most people think about B7 hair and nails, but it helps us metabolize our fats, carbs, and proteins, and it helps regulate our genes as well. Vitamin B9, also known as folate. This is really important with your red blood cell formation, DNA synthesis and repair. It's also a big player, as is B12 with methylation. So methylation is kind of a big deal for all of us, but particularly complex kids. So if B9 and B12 are low, you're going to have some challenges with methylation. And then finally, we have B12, also known as cobalamin. Again, with the energy production, red blood cell formation, really important for the way your nervous system works and how you make your DNA. So we hit our fat-soluble vitamins, our antioxidants, and our B vitamins. Now, we're going to talk just briefly about minerals. So there are lots of minerals, okay? We have calcium, magnesium, potassium, iron, etc. And in general, minerals are just calming to the system. So while B vitamins are kind of your movers of energy production, minerals are like their best friend that sort of help move those things along. They help those B vitamins work more efficiently. Minerals also help with fluid balance in the body, immune system function, neurotransmitters, all of that. And so whenever I see a kid who complains of things like growing pains or leg pains or spasms and cramps and things like that, or kids who kind of run high and hot, right? Busy. I always think about minerals, making sure that those levels are where they need to be. And I'll tell you, most of the kids who we test almost across the board are low in magnesium and low in zinc as well. So how do we know if there is a biochemical hiccup or problem that is causing issues? So I of course listen to the family's history of that child, but then when we're together, I look at physical signs and I'm looking for behavioral signs as well. So when I look at the physical body, I'm looking at the skin. So it's very common for complex kids to have a lot of skin disruptions. So things like eczema, warts sometimes. I'm sometimes we'll see just unexplained rashes or hives. And remember that the skin is a reflection of the intestine. So if the intestine is not happy, it's most likely going to show on the skin. A lot of times we'll see those red bumps on the skin. Usually the most common is upper arms, sometimes their legs, but I've seen kids covered in this, from their eyelids to their toes. Very common to see dry skin. Dry skin is generally telling me probably a lack of fatty acids. It's not a lack of lotion, right? It's something coming from the inside. We also see, some kids very young, like we'll have 4, 5, 6 years old kids who already have body odor, which is not, it's not normal. And so we'll see, super stinky feet. We'll see odd body odor. We see, kids who are pale with dark circles under their eyes. And then it's also very common for me, I always look for a herpetiform rash. So this is usually on the backs of the knees and on the bends of the elbows. We see a rash that looks like this. And my son had this actually. Rowan, this could have been a picture of him when he was a little guy. He had a very significant herpetiform rash. It would crack and bleed. And this is generally a sign of gluten intolerance. And that was the case for us. We had to be gluten-free for quite a while. I always look at hair. So anytime that I see flyaway hair, I see hair that's thin or sparse, it's not growing, I'm thinking a couple of things. Generally, I'm thinking the child probably isn't getting enough protein. And I'm thinking mitochondrial dysfunction, right? Because they don't have enough energy to make those things do what they need to do. Very, very common to see dry lips, cracks at the corners of the mouth. Dry lips, I'm immediately thinking fats and fatty acids. The cracks at the corners of the mouth, I'm immediately thinking a zinc deficiency. And so that's what I'm going to be looking for. If the child can show me their tongue, I always look at their tongue. In this particular case, this is called a geographic tongue. And this is usually telling me they've got some level of malabsorption in the intestine, probably also a yeast overgrowth. And then when I see fissures on the tongue, so cracks here on the sides, a big crack down the middle, I'm thinking malabsorption. I'm thinking B vitamin deficiencies. I also look at the fingernails. When I see white spots like this is generally suggestive of a mineral deficiency. Most often it's zinc, not always, but very commonly. When I see ridges in the nails, in kids, this isn't normal. It becomes more common as we age, but in a child, they should not have nails that are ridged like this. And this generally tells me there's not enough protein happening in their system. And then sometimes we'll have spoon nails like this, which also is significant for often an iron deficiency. And then I always look at the shape of kids' heads. When I see kids who have a really prominent forehead, and this doesn't tend to run in the family, like I look at mom and dad and siblings, if this is a child who has a very large, prominent forehead like this, I'm thinking vitamin D most of the time. And when I see, a large head in relation to the body, I see head shape differences. All of this is just telling me that we need to look deeper and do some testing. I always look at their belly. I look at it, I palpate it, I listen to it. It's very common for kids to have pretty significant bloating. And when we see, a big belly like this, it's often common that their little bottoms are pretty wasted away. And it's pretty common to see abnormal bowel sounds. So I always listen to their tummies. These are kids who have a lot of digestive problems. So physically, I'm looking for one thing, and then I'm also going to be looking at some different behavioral signs around digestion as well. So some behavioral clues that maybe looking more deeply at their biochemistry would be warranted. So food issues. So it's, again, our kids tend to be fairly selective eaters. They often will do what I call grazing. So instead of just sitting down and eating a meal and then sitting down and, 5 hours later and eating their next meal, they just want to eat all the time, just a little bit all the time. And grazing like this is a very strong sign that they have abdominal pain, maybe that they can't communicate. When they eat too much at one time, they tend to get a bellyache, and so they don't really want to eat a lot at once. We see a lot of self-induced limited diets. So those kids who will, only eat 4 things, or they'll only eat green things, or right? So they don't want things to touch. They don't want certain textures. Super common. I also, when I see kids like this, I'm also wanting to rule out any sort of oral restriction. So kids who have tongue ties and lip ties also struggle with food, as you can imagine. And then we also see cravings. So these are kids who will, drink a gallon of milk in 2 days, or they'll eat a whole loaf of bread in a day, or they only want carbs, they only want sugar. And when kids have cravings, they often crave what they're most sensitive to. So if mom says, hey, he'll drink a gallon of milk in a day, I'm immediately thinking he probably has a milk allergy or sensitivity. But also kids crave what they need to be able to make energy. So most kids do better making energy from carbs than they do fats and proteins. And so they tend to crave carbs because that's how they're going to get their best energy. We see a lot of digestive challenges. So these are 2 kids. They don't know each other. They're from far-flung places in the United States, but you can see they're both posturing in exactly the same way. So whenever a parent tells me that a child postures their body in a way that puts pressure on the abdomen, I'm immediately thinking that they're having some abdominal pain, probably some constipation as well. So again, with the posturing, the gas and bloating, a lot of kids have reflux, but a lot of them can't tell you. They can't quantify, hey, I feel like, I'm having reflux or I'm having burning here. But drooling is a really highly suggestive symptom that they are having some acid reflux. It's very common to see undigested food in the stool, for kids to have a lot of belly pain, to also grind their teeth. We will see that, when we take a really good history, certain foods will cause an increase in behavior or will cause a physical change, like their cheeks will turn red, or, maybe they immediately get a hive from that particular food. When my kids were littler, they're like, are you the poop doctor? All you do is talk about poop. But it's really important for complex kids. They generally tend toward constipation. Some kids have diarrhea. Some kids have both. And when I see behaviors around the poops, it's important. So some kids will smear their poop. Some kids will withhold their poop. And so anything around digestion is very, very important for us to know. Sleep is a big one. A lot of kids, instead of sort of winding down at the end of the day, they get more hyper or anxious at bedtime. A lot of kids have trouble falling asleep. They will often wake up in the night and just laugh at nothing or talk or babble to themselves. A lot of them will wake up early. They're restless sleepers. So all of these things are telling me probably some digestive issues, probably a yeast overgrowth in the intestine. I would also, for kids who are restless, who wake a lot, who grind their teeth, I'm also wondering about a tongue tie as well. And so energy issues. So most parents will say, oh, my kid has plenty of energy. They go all day. But really what I mean by that is more of a cellular energy production problem. So these are kids who have low stamina. They need time to recover after they've done something more physical. They often want to be carried. They want to ride in a stroller. And if they're able to, they might indicate that their legs are hurt or are hurting, they're painful, or that their legs get really tired. So I included this picture because this little guy is doing some feeding therapy with Liz, our OT. And whenever he eats, he must lay down. And what we found out about him is that he has very, very significant mitochondrial dysfunction. And so his body just didn't have the energy to stay upright to eat his meal. And so these are just the sorts of things that we look for in kids. So we do very accurate and specific testing when we suspect that this might be an issue for kids. The test we do is called the metabolomics. It's a urine test with a finger stick. And this tells us pretty much about everything we talked about today. So it tells me about deficiencies of antioxidants, B vitamins, minerals, as well as fatty acids. So omega-3, 6, 7, and 9 levels. It will give us a glimpse into intestinal health. So is there malabsorption? Is it because of yeast overgrowth, bacterial overgrowth? It'll tell us about neurotransmitters. So dopamine, serotonin, epinephrine. It tells us about amino acids. It tells us about detoxification pathways. And best of all, it gives us a glimpse into that mitochondrial function. So I can look at this and know, is there a problem with converting food to energy? Could it be because of deficiencies? Could it be because of pathogens? And so if you're concerned about your child, this is actually a pretty affordable way to get very specific, accurate data on exactly how we need to help them. So we do a lot of nutrition testing. We also do food allergy and sensitivity testing. And we've got a couple of different ways that we can do that. And we have multiple tests that require different sorts of specimens. So sometimes we can do a blood spot. Sometimes it requires a blood draw. Sometimes we can do urine. We also do stool tests as well. So we can do comprehensive stool analysis that will give us even deeper information about intestinal health. So it'll tell us the good flora, the good bacteria in the intestine, and it'll also culture out what isn't so good, as well as yeast. It will tell us how kids are digesting their food, if they have enough digestive enzymes. And so all of that can be really important. And before I forget, I mentioned cholesterol earlier. So it's exceedingly common for complex kids to have low cholesterol. And this is really important because remember I said kids aren't great eaters. Generally, they're not good at digesting, and particularly not good at digesting and synthesizing fats. And cholesterol, when it is low, can promote a lot of behavioral issues. It can even promote behaviors that look somewhat psychiatric when cholesterol is extremely low. And so that's also something that we very commonly test here as well, because we want to make sure that cholesterol levels are high enough for brain development. And so, yeah, so we're really, really good at knowing what test is most appropriate, having a variety of tests that kids can tolerate giving us a sample for. And most importantly, I think we're very good at analyzing those results and turning that into a comprehensive care plan. I can't tell you the number of families who come to us with this huge stack of very expensive labs, and the provider who ordered the labs has no idea what any of it means. So they just hand them the results and say, here you go. And so then they end up bringing the results to me or another provider to try to get some answers about, what do these results mean? How does that translate into care for my child? So we're very good at analyzing. We know what it all means, and we know, most importantly, what to do about that. And so we are always taking new patients. In fact, I've brought on another doctor and have trained her to do this particular type of work. So the neurodevelopmental exams, knowing what tests to order, how to analyze them, how to make a care plan and follow along that child so that they make the most progress possible. So remember, we're always looking at the why behind behavior. No bad kids, no purposeless behavior. There's always a reason. And if part of the reason is nutrient deficiencies, mitochondrial dysfunction, fat maldigestion. Until we fix that, the other things that parents are doing aren't going to have as much benefit, right? The body has to be regulated and healthy in order to benefit from the speech and the OT and the ABA and the other things that they may be doing. So it's just a really critical part of the puzzle. It's not necessarily everything, right? But it's a big piece, because if the child is in pain, if they have deficiencies, if they're not digesting their food appropriately, they're just not going to progress the way we want them to. So again, if you are worried about your child, you think this might be a good fit for them, if you want to consult with us, we're always taking new patients. We're trying to, manage things so that the wait list is as short as possible. We do split our new patient appointments into 2 visits. So we do 1 visit with parents only, where we take the history, and we do that because no child wants to come sit at a super long appointment, right? That's hard for them. But again, nobody wants to hear about all their problems, right? And so we feel like it's just best for us to be able to talk openly, not talk about the child's challenges in front of them. And so then when you come for your next office visit, we're just working with the child, doing the physical exam, trying to figure things out, while we're looking like we're having fun. So this is our contact information. Again, we're in Jefferson City. If you have questions, you can always email me. You can look at our website. It gives lots of information as well. And then, of course, follow us on socials. Most of our social media presence is educational. So really teaching you about exactly what I've talked to you about today and sort of all those intricacies of complex kids and their chemistry. So that was your quick biochemistry nutrition lesson for today. If you have any questions at all, you can drop them in the Q&A box. You can also email me or my staff at any time, and we're super happy to answer your questions or support you however we can. So if you registered for this, you will get access to the replay. We also give you access to these replays via our website as well. So again, if you have the desire for some additional information, you can go to thewhymatters.net. We have blogs there. We also have all the webinar replays as well. And so there's lots of really good information that you can access there. And I do one of these webinars a month, usually on the first Friday of each month at 9 a.m. And then we also print 2 blog posts a month about, some topic that's related to this. So anyway, thanks to everybody who came. I appreciate your time. And if you have any questions at all, just shoot us an email or give the office a call. All right. You guys have a great day.